Well, hello, beautiful people. How are you this very fine Monday? Sorry, I'm running a little bit late. It's been one of those days today where, sorry, as I play with the microphone, been one of those days today, madly running around and getting ready for a big launch of My Place Redlands and our new, hopeful, outside broadcast vehicle coming up this Friday. If you are in the Brisbane area and you'd like to come along, then we would love to have you. There aren't many tickets left, I'll be honest, but if you're quick and you happen to be in the Capalaba area, Friday night it's going to happen from 5 if you wanted to be there. Email Rachel, Rachel, at vofhq.com, and we will see what we can do about getting you a ticket and getting you there in time for the event. It will be a spectacular evening, I can guarantee you. Pardon me while I figure out some glasses to see through. And I think Cass will be there from Freedom Financial Solutions if you have any self-managed super fund questions. And of course, we'll also have representative, I think his name is Tim, who'll be coming from Ainsley Bullion. Unfortunately, I managed to program this right in the middle of when Paul was on holidays. So unfortunately, he can't come, but there will be a representative from Ainsley there if you've got any questions about bullion at all, gold or silver, or many other types of precious metals, because there are a few. And there will be that Bergwerf fella. He'll be there too, Darren Bergwerf. So if you'd like to come along, we would love to have you. And Darren is arriving Wednesday at the Gold Coast, I believe, for an event there Wednesday night. Thursday, off to the Sunshine Coast, Barine Point is where we're going to be for there. Friday with me. And Saturday, I hear tell coming to Jim Boomba. Woohoo! I may well pop over with him. Pardon me. If all things go to plan, I might have. Well, you never know how I might come. Don't know what area you've got at Jim Boomba. If it's a large area, I might be able to come. What a weekend. What a weekend. I mean, I got to say, let me be honest, for the last 36 hours or so, very unpleasant weekend. I lost my car keys. Yesterday morning, it was my intention to be at an event happening out in the Brisbane Valley. I actually was bringing along a projector and a couple of other things to help them out for the day. And John Wilson was going to be speaking along with a few other people. It was going to be a fairly interesting day. So I bailed out of bed at 5:30, got myself sorted, got everything organised, got it ready to take to the car. Couldn't find the car keys. Could not find the car keys. Wound up having a huge fight with Laura at about 6:30 in the morning when she got up, because she was the last one to use my car, and she copped it in a bad way. So I have apologised, and I was just a bit frustrated, and she happened to poke her head up at the wrong time. Not the way that an adult should behave. I was accusing her, blaming her of putting the keys God knows where, and still hadn't found them until about 45 minutes ago, where they were in a place that had been searched 100 times. And literally, this room has been torn apart. Happily, there were some things I did discover while tearing it apart, including my reading glasses, which means I can read what you're saying without having to go like that all the friggin' time. And I also found the spare key to my car, which sort of took the necessity of finding the key out of the whole equation. But would you believe, no sooner had I found the key to the car than the spare key went missing. But I had to do the show, so here we are doing the show. That was the beginning of the last 36 hours for me. Of course, the weekend started on Saturday, and well, what a day that's turned out to have been, particularly for people in Sydney. Now, if you went to the worldwide rally for freedom rally in Sydney on Saturday, you probably would have been a little shocked, a little surprised to discover that it had turned into a no-vote rally. I don't know how that actually happened, but, well, I do, because as it turns out, I've been talking a bit today with certain people who are involved at various different points in this whole shit fight, can I just say, that has been what this Sydney event turned into. And there are some concerning things about it. There are people telling lies here. There are a lot of people telling lies. There are a lot of asses being covered. So, my real question out of all of that is why? Why do they feel there is a great need to tell these lies? So, let's begin at the beginning. The Freedom Rally is a worldwide rally for peace. At least that's what it was marketed as, certainly here in Brisbane, in Perth, in Adelaide, in Melbourne, and in Sydney, as far as I'm aware, at least in its first iteration. Now, there was a poster put out, and on that poster, there were a number of speakers listed. One of those speakers was Guru. Guru, I believe, had been in touch with the organizer, and that organizer had said, yep, by all means, away you go. And in fact, Guru apparently promoted the event quite heavily, as he would, because he's been behind every other freedom rally that's happened in Sydney, and they happen every 2 or 3 months. And the organizer is the same organizer every time. So, they've had a relationship going back some time. Now, I'm surprised that he was surprised that a few days later, a new poster, a new flyer was put out, and it was pretty much all the same things, except the Freedom Rally part of it had been chopped off, and there was talk of a no vote rally instead. And interestingly enough, no Guru on the speakers list. So I gather, Guru saw that, or somebody in Guru's team saw that and thought, it's a bit weird. They started asking questions, and one thing led to another, and conversations were had with the organizer. Now, who was the organizer? Well, the organizer, as far as I'm aware, is Cossack. So they must have had a pretty interesting conversation, I would assume. So there is a lot of things that come out of conversations, and I don't think that the politicians are being very truthful in what's going on here. But let's lay out that somewhere in the mix, $100,000 was thrown into a story that, this money, the federal government had thrown in money to support this campaign or whatever. Anyway, there's no doubt the stage was set up in Sydney was a fairly good stage. You would be talking 15 to 20 grand for that stage any day of the week. And because it was who and what it was, I suspect they probably got stung maybe a little bit harder. But anyway, any day of the week, that stage is 15 to could even be up to $35,000 just for the day, for the few hours that it was there. There would be permits involved in being able to get that all in there, and yada 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 yada. So, all right, there's a little bit of money involved in getting that staging there, but that's never been a problem before. The stage is really only a platform for people to stand on. The screen that came attached to it, well, that's interesting. It's good. It's interesting. I wonder who was filming all that. That means there was somebody hanging off a camera somewhere. Or if they weren't hanging off a camera, they were hanging off a switching unit, pushing that camera feed to that screen. So more people involved, more money. That's, they're covered under, I think, the screen cost, I would suspect. But then the politicians start talking about, and I listened to Simeon's interview with this John Ruddock from the DLP, who claims that his party put in money to make sure that the event happened. And this was an interview conducted by the Aussie Cossack on his show on Troll and Truthless Radio, TNT. He admitted that they had thrown money in to make sure that this became a proper event, had to be professional, had to look good, had to do this, had to do the other. And that's all great. But from the moment they started talking, they were referring to it as the No Rally. However, this date was a worldwide rally for freedom. This is a day for the people to get together and rally for freedom. On the back of that, a lot of people have arrived expecting to be rallying for freedom and hearing a lot of topics, especially the voice. That was always going to be a major topic of any rally of the day. But it's my understanding that pressure was applied to make sure that it was the only topic of the day. So, who applied that pressure and how was it applied? Well, one can suggest the easiest way to apply pressure is to throw money at it. And by Ruddock's own admission, he, and there was talk at the time that it was the UAP were throwing money in to back this whole event, make it happen, and give it a professional look. But my understanding is there may have been a qualification that said, well, we will donate this money, but it's a single issue event. It's only about no. So you're not going to be getting up and talking about freedom, and you're not going to be talking about pedophile politicians, and you're not going to be talking about tunnels and dams and the war that's unseen going on around us. And they didn't want any of that to be spoken about, and therefore, I believe there was some form of meeting instigated between Guru and a few others, including the guy from the DPP, Ruddock, Cossack, and quite possibly one or two others. That meeting, they basically laid the law down. Guru, I believe, would fight the good fight and lay the law back. But it's my understanding that in that meeting, this John Ruddock expressed the fact that his party had donated $50,000, or no, had given, not donated, given $50,000, and others were giving similar to make sure that this event happened the way they wanted it to happen. Now, that was hijacking the event straight away, taking it from a worldwide freedom rally, to a political no vote event. Now, if you listen to Simeon's interview with this goose, he quite happily admits that, the yes vote had a big celebration and a big thing last weekend. Well, why can't we do the same? So we're going to do the same. That's what we're going to do. So they turned this rally from the worldwide freedom rally into an Australia-only vote no rally. Now, as part of that, someone had the idea, and I suspect it was the organizer, to get the number I've been told is 35 tribal folk from different parts of far western and northern New South Wales. We're talking places like Walgett and Barwarana, Coonamble, those sorts of places. Dubbo, I believe. I don't know how far west that is. I've been through Dubbo a lot. If you travel the Newell Highway, it's a beautiful town. Anyway, they apparently bussed 35 people from these areas to Sydney and put them up because they felt, the people who were throwing this money, obviously, because money is how you get things done, the people felt, who were handing out the money, that what they should be doing is bringing these people to town and giving them a decent place to stay for the night and making them welcome, because they had heard that some of them were going to be staying in, areas on the outskirts of Sydney, and that may not have been all that flash. So, of course, the organizer decided then that some of that $100,000 that they'd just been given would go to paying for that. So here, I think that's wonderful. Where would you put these people up? Well, you could always go to the Sheraton for $550 to $570 per room per night on a Friday or Saturday night. If you went on a Monday or Tuesday night, wrong photo. I've got another one there. It's about $320 a night. But that's the rate for a Friday, Saturday night. So that's exactly what they paid, unless they got some sort of a government or party deal, which might have made it fractionally cheaper, you would think. And my understanding is there were 35 people who travelled from far western and northern New South Wales who needed and used that accommodation Friday and Saturday at the Sheraton Hotel. So the organisers obviously would have had to have paid for that. Now, okay, no worries. Simeon was the organiser, as far as I'm aware. The Aussie Cossack was the organiser. Now, the Aussie Cossack and the Guru have been working together pretty hard, particularly for rallies, for the last 12 months or so. They've had each other's back, so to speak. And I've got to say I'm a bit disappointed. And I can't say I'm terribly surprised, but I'm a bit disappointed that the Aussie Cossack has hung his mate out like this for $100,000. Because where else has the money gone? He's the organiser. So to change the rally from the Freedom Rally, the worldwide rally for freedom, the one that, a lot of others went to. However, those were hijacked as well. The Perth one, particularly where Bosie was, another, all morphed into this, vote no rally, which is okay. But did you happen to notice, particularly in Sydney, that while one of the elders was up there speaking, he was surrounded by a couple of other tribe members all dressed in purple? If you aren't aware of that significance, then look it up. Another little rabbit hole for you to go down. But that is very significant. The colour purple in the way things in our world work. So why would you choose that at that sort of a rally? And under those conditions, well, you might choose it because you didn't pay to get there. You were looked after. You were, whatever. And if all you had to do was wear the right colour togs, then you'd be pretty happy about it. Now, who is the organiser? Who was the organiser of the rally? This is the question for me, because there's $100,000 here. Now, if you were going to go and hire a bus and drive it, do that trip, if you like, that circuit to pick people up. And I don't know if they did that. It certainly would increase it. Journey kilometres wise, it would be a fairly expensive trip. Let's say $10,000 return. So at the moment, we're at about 27, let's say 30,000 of 100,000 spent. Let's be generous and spend another 20 just on miscellaneous security and bits and pieces like that. So there's 50 grand spent. Where's the other 50? What happened to that? Did that go to the organizer? Or did that go to somewhere else? Now, if you listen further and deeper into Simeon's interviews, because he did quite a number of them trying to justify his position there on Trollope and Truthless the other night. He had Craig Kelly on. He had this John Ruddock on with all the excuses in the world, also calling it the no vote rally right from the word go, when it was, in fact, a freedom rally, a worldwide freedom rally. So $100,000 comes into the mix. Guru gets dropped like a hot rock. And, there's been some interesting conversations, I'm sure, between Guru and Guru's people and the Aussie Cossack and the Aussie Cossacks people. But I suspect we haven't heard the last of this. I suspect that there is a bit more behind all of this, and people will want to know where this money has gone. Now, Craig Kelly came out in one of those, you know, ass protecting interviews that the Cossack did on Troll Up and Truthless the other night, that he and the executive of the UAP decided not to donate money. You've got to think in a similar scale, $50,000. They decided not to put their 50K in last Wednesday. Okay. All right. If you were going to organise buses, particularly transport for these people, right, that has to be pretty much bought and paid for before anybody's going to put a drop of fuel in a tank and go and pick anybody up. So that all had to be paid for up front. The hotels would have wanted a card or a booking. The Sheraton would have, want a card that they could put the whole booking down for everybody on, and all the incidentals that we used. Should they have had any extras at breakfast or bar fridge or whatever, then mini feed, what do they call them in rooms? Whatever those things are. That would all be added. So that would all have to be basically incurred from the moment of booking. This would have been done in the good faith that the UAP were going to be putting up $50,000. They decide, 2 days ostensibly from the event, to not do that. But not only that, they don't tell anybody, because I'm led to believe that in a meeting that Guru was part of, on the same day that Craig Kelly claims that he said, no, we're not putting up any money, I have the DLP bloke, I believe, saying that it's the UAP and us who are putting up 50K a piece, and we're, going to have a great day. The timeline doesn't really work out. However, it does if Craig Kelly's using hindsight in an interview on Trolls and Truthless radio on Saturday night with the Aussie Cossack, who clearly looks like he's sold out his little Aussie mate Guru for 100K. Oh, no, wait a minute, hang on. If you go back and listen to those interviews, you'll also find that they're thanking Mike Ryan, the man who, and I'll put this in inverted commas, owns Troll Up and Truthless Radio. Well, let's call it TNT. He apparently, and Troll and Truthless apparently stumped up all the costs for this whole weekend. So, okay, if they paid for the staging and they paid for the buses, did they pay for the hotels too? Well, not hotels, the Sheraton Hotel. That'd be the Sheraton on the Park in Sydney, because it'd be the closest place to the venue. So who paid? Did Mike Ryan from TNT Radio pay, as they give him a voluminous amount of credit for in their little I nearly said something bad for radio, on their little interview that they did on Saturday night, which sounded panicked, if you ask me. And I know for a fact Aussie Cossack has been copping a heap of flack on whatever social media pages that he has these days. I don't know. I don't follow him in a while. He never returns calls. He never returns emails. He's just... So anyway, it is what it is. But he's been copping a hell of a lot of flack over it, because it's not really what you do to a mate, is it? Would you ditch your mate for $100,000? Especially in this war. I mean, you may not be best friends. You may not be buddies, is the word I'm trying to get out. But, you are shoulder to shoulder fighting the great evil. Or are you? Because right now, the bloke you thought you could rely on has done a deal with someone for $100,000, because he's the organizer of the rally, remember? Right? He was the organizer and has organized the last number of worldwide freedom rallies. And that's what this event was advertised as initially, until there was some interdiction, some incentivization going on, and then, pardon me, it was rejigged and hijacked into a vote no rally. But I think this all happened after Guru had got on maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or more shows, I don't know, and plugged the arse out of it and got all his supporters to get along behind it. Now, what happened, whether they let him on the stage, whether they're not, that's a different sort of a point to cover, and probably not one for me to be bothered with. But I am particularly interested in where the money went, because there's $100,000 here that may or may not have been put up. We definitely know there's $50,000 being put up, okay? Because the LDP admit it. They also admitted that others were putting up, the other money, and by inference, we can take from Craig Kelly's comments with the Aussie Cossack in his own show on Saturday night that it was the UAP who were considering stumping up, you've got to think, at least 50K. Maybe less, but, why would the LDP do it? And, yeah. Anyway. But then the timeline breaks down. All of a sudden, one day, yep, there's, 100K being thrown up. Next day, or even a little later that day, apparently, but nobody's told anybody. UAP have decided not to chip in. But this guy's also mentioned private donations. So how many other private donations were there? How much extra money was there that was thrown into that pot? And where did it go? Did it go to the organizer? No? Yes? No? Question for him, maybe. And he's not answering my questions, so maybe you can ask. Or did it go to Mike Ryan at Trollop and Truthless Radio? And if it did, I can guarantee you they didn't spend $100,000 there in putting on a live stream for Trollop and Truthless Radio. Nowhere near it. I'll nearly be able to tell you to the cent very shortly exactly how much it was. But it was nothing like. We're talking maybe I'll be really generous and say $5,000, right? That's about how much that would have cost them to do. Of course, they needed someone on the ground to help them with that. And happily, they happened to have an employee, although he couldn't be on the ground for them. He could coordinate it because he has people running all over Sydney doing his bidding. And he's probably able to throw them a few dollars to do that bidding by doing deals with people like this, netting $100,000, maybe. I don't know. Show us where it went. If you've got nothing to hide, show us where it went. Show us exactly who donated. And Mike Ryan and crew from TNT, you stump up how much you paid. And Cossack, you tell us how much your bonus is. Because the only way I can think that you would turn over a mate, someone who you've been shoulder to shoulder with in this battle for I don't know how long, is for money. And that's sad if that's the case. It's really sad. No real excuse. Oh, we're going to do this with it. Oh, we're going to do that with it. Oh, we're going to... It doesn't matter how many free sausages you give away. You don't do that to mates. You just don't. If you'd given them an undertaking that something was going to happen and you wanted their support to promote it, then all of a sudden, not only is it not the Freedom Rally anymore, it's all of a sudden something else. And it becomes politicized. Now, the only other point that I would draw in all of this bullshit is let's look back to Canberra. What were the faces Who were the faces that walked into Parliament House to tell the government the people have had enough? And what was the end result? They walked out and said, oh, come back in March. Come back on March 29. Yeah, it'll be better then. Remember them? Think back. Who was involved with that fracturing moment in the freedom movement? All of the names involved. All of them. Now, we've got a whole bunch of the same names popping up, fracturing the freedom movement again, but doing it with a no vote parade or rally. What are you seeing here, folks? Are you seeing who the true dissenters might be? Are you going to keep supporting them? Or are you going to call them out? I think there's a lot of questions to be asked here. Forget about the mates thing if you can. Personally, I'd find that a bit hard to get over. But let's just follow the money. Where is the money? Who paid what? And how much of it has gone where? Because the Cossack might be getting $1,000 a week to do that show, if he's lucky. You know, I think it'd probably be less, but who knows? It might be more. I guarantee you probably... I think there's a fairly significant chance it'll be more now. But I'd be very interested to learn where the money went. I think if the boys, being Cossack, Craig Kelly, who's this numpty from the LDP, Ruddock, if they can tell us where the money went, Ruddock? John Ruddock from the LDP, open offer to come on my show anytime you like, carl@vofhq.com. Come on, explain to me who you gave your $50,000 to. Was it the organizer of the Freedom Rally? Or was it TNT Radio? Who, incidentally, the organizer of the Freedom Rally happens to work for. They're the questions that we should be following, folks. Who paid to hijack this rally? And who let it happen? And was willing to sacrifice, well, what I think most of us probably assumed was at least a tacit alliance. Let's find out where that money went. I think that's the big question we all need to be asking. It's interesting how these people just out themselves after a while. But you can't have it both ways, guys. There was $100,000 mentioned. And maybe it wasn't 100, maybe it was 70, maybe it was 80, maybe it was 150. But there was certainly more than $50,000 mentioned or expected. And I suspect a lot of it had been outlaid prior to the event in bookings for certain things. They don't just roll those trucks and stages out without being paid. You get paid pre-event, not post. So where'd the money go? Where'd the money go? If you'd like, any of you would like to come on my show and talk about that, Aussie Cossack has my number. So, I don't know, phone hasn't started ringing yet. Yeah, but if you'd like to get in contact, Cossack's got my number. We'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But I don't know. I would have thought, folks, this is an eye-opening moment for many people. A sad moment, because many Australians looked up to this bloke. A lot of them thought, and probably still do think, he's some sort of Russian sympathizer or spy or traitor or whatever. I don't believe that to be the case. He's very, very, very patriotic towards Russia, but he is an Australian citizen. We have many other nationalities in this country who are equally as patriotic about their homelands And I don't see that's a bad thing as long as you don't bring the war in your homeland to our streets. Aussies don't deal with that sort of thing terribly well. I don't remember the last time the Russians fought the Australians, but I do remember the last time a Russian battleship made it close enough to Australian shores to do anything about it. It had to be towed home, from memory. That's going back to the G20 back here in these days. Russia sent the world's biggest bloody battleship down here and a tug so they could tow it home, and they had to. Anyway, hopefully they've improved their electronics a bit as well. But I hope this little episode, because it's going to play out over the next days. If there's one thing the Cossack doesn't like, it's bad publicity, and he doesn't like being challenged on his own page. And did I suck any of these in? I've been running so madly tonight trying to get. Yeah, okay. So I have a few of these comments that I can show you tonight that have been posted on various different by various different people into Telegram chats. I'm just seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think I've missed that one. There we go. Right. So this is probably indicative of how things are going. Yep. Sold out to politicians for 100K. You lost me. You are controlled. You did the same to Ricardo Bosi. You should be black banned. That was not a rally for politicians to only talk about the voice. Disgraceful. I support Russia, but not you anymore. This is similar to a lot of comments coming from people. Have you sold out, Aussie Cossack? So disappointed. I was a big fan, and he is feeling that a lot all over the place at the moment. This one's going to hurt. No thanks. I didn't join freedom fighters to be hijacked by dirty politicians. I trusted you 100%, Cossack. You have let us down. And the worldwide rally, mate, whatever. It wasn't for the pollies. It was for our march for the people. They hijacked our day. Trollop and Truthless Radio did not allow Glenn, Guru, A1 or anyone from Freedom speak. They only let the politicians on stage. They hoped that Simeon played no role, but once again, the organizer. And I believe that there is evidence, video evidence of a conversation where Simeon was making it very clear, not only to Guru, but to members of Simeon's own team who wanted to put Guru on the stage, that it wasn't going to happen. It was not to happen. Do not let that happen. And that's apparently where there was some things going on behind the stage. And Craig Kelly came off stage. He was meant to be the last speaker. Of course, the last speaker role is usually reserved for the person of the most esteemed person, I suppose, probably the person who paid the most money, wouldn't you think? Or would the DLP have liked to have taken the last word on this, considering they admit to the money they've paid? But Craig Kelly, in Cossack's interview with him on Saturday night, pulled back from it all and said, "Oh no, we didn't pay anything." I smell bullshit, Craig. But please come on the show and tell me why it's not bullshit. Prepared to hear your answers. Just be prepared to show us. You never know what we know in the background, Craig. So come on and show us your side, old mate. We'll see what you say. Right. Yeah. Go right back to Canberra and take a look at the shit stirrers who stayed the distance, Bosi and Guru, and no way did they want to join any of the other sellouts. 100% right. They have stood alone together. Does that make sense? Right from Epic. For good and bad, I would wager on that, just from my own experience. I think some interesting times ahead. Veronique, thank you very much. I love you dearly for your donation. Thank you to Sunflower. Your $7 sticker goes a long way. There'll be a coffee or two involved in that. The lovely Misha, I hope you guys are well, and thank you. Yep, follow the money. You're 100% on it, Mish. Follow the money. Where is that money? There seems to be a question mark. Not over was there money. There is a guarantee there is at least $50,000 here to follow. And depending on how well they've hidden it, we may never find the other money, because you could write that 50 grand off in, stage and hotel fees and probably still have to add money to it. However, timelines don't match up. Organizations, political parties, that kind of thing. It requires a bit of approval if you're going to go and put 35 Aborigines into the Sheraton Hotel for 2 nights on a Friday and a Saturday night in the middle of Sydney. Somebody's going to have to put a card on there, a party card. Somebody's going to have to, stand good for the costs, as they would if it was 35 Indians or 35 white people, right? Same deal. Doesn't matter whether you're black, white, or blue. Who did that? Who paid for that? How was it paid? How much did it cost? What was the name of the bus company that brought these 35 individuals down? Or was it bus companies? How much did that cost? I know the transport game pretty well, so I'm very interested to find out how much that run cost. So 35 tribes people from Western, Northern New South Wales made their way down here. I believe it was a 14-hour drive for some. Now that's a good drive. That's not a bad drive. Laura and I have driven that. That's Brisbane to Canberra, essentially, maybe 15 hours to Canberra, maybe. But yeah, 14 hours is a good drive to Sydney. I admit you'd want to have a good sleep. The Sheraton's a good place to sleep. There's no doubt about that. Were these people invited by the organizer of the Freedom Rally, or were they invited by the organizer of the Vote No rally? And who is the organizer of the Vote No rally? Well, I guess that's Trollop and Truthless Radio. But Aussie Cossack was the organizer of the Freedom Rally, which is what the event started as. Do you see the questions that are here? I mean, aside from the absolute bastard act of what you've done to a mate, got to be honest, I'm not surprised. I haven't told you the story behind the postcards. We'll get to that one day. But the postcards that you all sent him while he was in jail. Anyway, we'll talk about that another day. There is just there's an element of something here that's not quite right. And I hope many of you are seeing the light and will stop supporting these kinds of people, be them politicians or supposed media types, including me. Stop supporting me if I start speaking shit and carrying on. There'll be a lot immediately who just turn off. But use some critical thinking skills in this particular moment, in this particular example, because I think it lays bare beautifully the infiltrators in the freedom movement. Lays them bare, exposes them beautifully, and they have exposed themselves. If you do not see that now, it's likely you never will. And it's clear that we, being the great Aussies that we are, the patriots that we are or have been misled by the Aussie Cossack and his level of patriotism and brotherhood that he feels with us. Because he just turned on one of us. Threw him to the dogs. And why did he do that? For $100,000. I'm not saying Cossack got the $100,000, but that was what the changing moment was. The money being offered from political parties or private donors. That's what changed this. And the Cossack went from the organizer of the worldwide rally for freedom, next event, to the organizer of a vote no rally, which is great. But it was hijacked by politicians and politicians who very definitely made it clear that Dave Guru Graham was not to be allowed on that stage to speak under any possible condition. Could one of those conditions have been broken, and one of the conditions been, rather, had he get on stage, the other money that hadn't been paid yet to cover costs wouldn't be forthcoming. No bonus. Might explain some of the anger that I've heard coming down a phone line. I might actually cut some of it out and let you hear it. But I have some very interesting audio I can play here. So we need to be a bit discerning here, folks. Have a think about this. I've been thinking about it all day, yesterday and today. It's concerning to me on two levels. One, that a mate would do this to a mate. That's probably the first thing. Even though you wouldn't call them great friends, I don't think, but you would call them allies. Many people approach me and, often mention the Cossack's name and what a great ally he is. Now, I haven't considered the Cossack an ally in a very long time. But I don't consider him terribly, or haven't until this weekend, haven't really considered him anything other than what he looks like. But now we know what he looks like. He'll rout a mate, roll over on a mate, dump a mate for money in a heartbeat. And he'll dump the freedom movement in a heartbeat because he's the organizer of the Worldwide Rally for Freedom, which had the poster change to become a no vote rally for the day. No problem having a no vote rally. Just why did it have to be that day on that rally? Timing is interesting. Matters to me not whether or not Dave Guru Graham gets up to speak or not. I'm interested in finding out where the money went. So if you know anybody in those ranks, please ask. I think it'll be very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Let me have a look and see what else there is in here. September the 11th was Jesus' birthday. If people were wondering, I did see somebody in the chat talk about that. Yeah, Hill Summit's got the right idea. Every day is a good day to celebrate the good Lord. Zippy missed the meeting in Perth with Bosey, couldn't go, but had friends who did, and they met him. Yep, I believe that he was also unable to get up onto the stage. I'm not sure that he was ever invited to, but he went to the event anyway, and as is his nature, when he's not allowed up on a stage to speak, he just hangs around down the back, and people tend to come to him anyway. If it's anything like, in fact, the last time that he attended a rally and wasn't allowed to speak, it was a Cossack organized rally. Now that I think about it. And what did Bosey do? Walked away to a coffee shop and took about 10,000 people with him. So, Yes, it was, I think, a similar kind of event in Perth yesterday as well. I haven't heard or seen much about it. Interestingly, though, when I said before about look at the faces that are this divisive element in this latest charade that we are seeing played out in front of us, and look at those faces that went into Parliament House in Canberra and came out saying, go home on March 29. I think it was March 29. Oh, go home and come back on March 29. Well, there was one face missing in Sydney, and I brought that up in a conversation with some people today, and they roared laughing. They said, he's in Perth. I'm talking about Hoodie. Wonder where he was. At that rally in Perth? Highly likely, I suspect. Maybe not. But Hoodie's in Perth at the moment. So that was the only face that was really missing. That would have been a perfect match for those that split the movement in Canberra, split it, and then walked out and told everybody to go home. Everybody did. What have they done now? They've walked in on a Freedom Movement Day and split it again. And it's the same players, folks. It's the same players. Are you seeing it? Point it out to others who aren't. Because it can be a bit difficult to see at times. Can be a bit difficult to see. So, but it's something we should all be very, very aware of from now on. Very, very aware of. Yes, Dave, I take your point. Be careful who I accuse. Well, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm asking questions, Dave. I want to know where the money went. We know there was money. So where did it go? Who used it? How much of it's left over? Who's getting a bonus? Is anybody getting a bonus? Maybe they're not. But I believe the worldwide rally for freedom got changed into a vote no rally and turned into a political event because political parties paid someone money. Who is all I want to know. Who paid? Who did they pay? What did it pay for? How much is left? Give me those answers. I'll be a pretty happy bloke. Show me the audit. Let's audit that. Because that's the only way we're going to believe it. You'd have to audit it. But anyway, yes, I believe that the Guru was kept off the stage, same as Bosie. Had he, I think, wanted to get up on stage. I'm not sure if he even tried, to be honest. He may not have. Yeah. Nice question, Veronique. I don't know. What's it look like? I have an opinion on that, but I'm not going to tell you about it yet. There's more to come on that. All I would suggest to you folks is that all you need to do is look at the ego. Look at the egos involved, okay? And analyze it from that perspective. I've been looking at egos for 40 years, all right? They're interesting things. They're such interesting things to watch. And if you're any good at it, you can learn how to manipulate an ego. It can also be a very dangerous game trying to manipulate an ego because the owner of that ego catches you manipulating it. It can have consequences. So it's not a game for the faint-hearted, but our particular movement seems to be infested with a lot of egos. And because of this interaction that we have on a screen, people are carrying over the adulation or the feeling of, oh, as a TV star, into this amateur realm that we are performing in, so to speak. And when I say we, I include myself, and performing in, I say that is what we are all doing. We are performing. We're not putting on a show. We're not telling, well, I'm not telling you lies, but it is a performance. At the end of the day, you turn something on, the lights go on, you smile a bit, and you say, yep, yeah. So it's a kind of a performance. You got to be careful what you're paying for in the performance. And some people get a lot of attention because they do some good performing and attract a lot of attention. This can be overwhelming to some people. And Daniel Johns from Silverchair is probably a good example. The adulation drove him into anxiety and he couldn't come out of his house, and yada, 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 a variety of other things. Similar kind of thing can happen with this, although the people who tend to gravitate to this side of the camera or this side of the microphone are obviously prepared to have an ego, ready to deal with that. But I can tell you from personal experience that it's a lot to deal with. Getting greeted in the street when you're paying for fuel and walking into a servo and being hugged by people who burst into tears because they meet you is wow. I mean, it means a lot. Complete strangers. In Sydney, that happened to me, of all places. And it moves me tremendously. I don't go out there to do that. In fact, I'm embarrassed by it. And then others who are wondering who this woman is hugging this complete stranger and having a great chat, and she starts explaining, "Oh, this is Carl, and he does this, isn't it?" I find that pretty embarrassing. I'm grateful that you're happy and want to talk about it and all that, but I'm just not used to seeing it. I'm a radio person, I sit behind the mic. You never get to see me. I can walk in and out of places all I like, and it's not until I open my mouth and say something that people occasionally pick up. But this whole thing with pictures is very different. So I've been experiencing the same thing. Thankfully, I hope I'm dealing with it a bit better. I've had a lot of years on the radio to deal with it very badly, and I did, trust me. So hopefully this time round I'm dealing with it a lot better. I am no different to you. There is no difference in anything I am good at, bad at, or indifferent to you. You are just better at a different set of skills than me. That's all. There are plenty, in fact, every other job in the world I can't do except talk, right? Talk is all I'm good at. Every one of my school reports has got, Carl could do better if he didn't talk so much. I put that down to useless teachers not being able to spot talent when they see it. Radio talent, anyway. Can't say the quality of the teaching's improved very much either. So, yeah, I think I'm going to leave it for tonight. God will sort it out. I'm a big adage in let them have enough rope, they'll hang themselves. And I think there has been a lot of rope go out on the Aussie Cossack. And could this be the point where the rope goes taut? Well, that'll be up to the people to decide, I guess. But I've got to say, his actions are very disappointing. And now that the smell of money has been involved, that sort of taints it a little bit more for me. I would like it to be that none of this money turns up in the Aussie Cossacks' hands by way of being the organizer. I would suspect it's gone to TNT Radio, or the organizations themselves have paid certain things off, be that the hotels or the transport or the whatever. Let's just see the audit. Let's see the breakdown. Let's see where the money went. But I got to say, I think if you were a mate of Cossacks, how secure would you feel in your friendship about now if there was an advantage to him in outing you for some reason? I got to say, that's not very Aussie. Not very Aussie at all. And I'm really disappointed about it. I mean, all day I've been feeling it here because, believe it or not, I don't talk about him much. I have a private opinion of the Cossack, and I really, genuinely like him. He's got a lot of talent. He's a young guy. He has a lot of talent, and he has a lot of skills in areas that I don't. Right, areas that I have no ability in. He excels at master level. So I admire him on many levels. And I had hoped that we could be friends. But for whatever reason, God had a different plan for that. And it's not that we're not friends, it's just that we're not anything. It's just that simple. He's never reached out since he got out of jail. So, weird. Tis what it is, though. Remember that bit of rope? That's how it works. Anyway, love you, folks. Yes, he is, Lotus. He is still in the Russian consulate, hiding. Well, yeah, but hiding from the police, I think, not from us. He has been found guilty in absentia in a rigged, I will say, trial, because the trial wasn't even on to be mentioned that day, let alone anything else. They just happened to see his lawyer in the building for something else, and they railroaded him into court and essentially pressed through the trial in Cossack's absence, found him guilty, and gave him jail time. So he disappeared into the consulate to gain protection. He has asked for political asylum. I am led to believe the Russians have given him a form of asylum, and certainly he has the protection of the consulate in Sydney. He has an apartment in there that he lives in, and I believe is allowed out a couple of hours a day, but only into the backyard, not allowed out of the consulate grounds. Although I am also reliably informed that he does sneak out on occasion for the odd dinner somewhere or whatever. That would be done, I suspect, under cover of a diplomatic passport, for the want of a different term. And I dare say he would be with a diplomatic passport holder if he didn't have one himself. So that would be the only way, unless he's stupid enough to just go out and risk getting caught. Who knows? If the coppers did find him then on the streets, then they would take him straight to jail. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. The Russian consulate would not do anything because he was off their grounds and outside of their protection. So not really much they can do. He hasn't, I don't believe at this point, while there are rumors that he has been offered Russian citizenship, I am unsure whether or not he has accepted it. The same as that I am unsure whether or not the rumors of him leaving the country in 3 weeks' time and going to Russia are true or not. Those rumors also abound that should he be going to Russia, Trollop and Truthless Radio would continue his broadcasts and allow him to broadcast from Mother Russia, if that is what was to happen. You've got to think he would probably need a few more rubles if he was going to be moving to Russia and being able to broadcast there from TNT Radio. There might be a pay rise in his future, do you think, if that's happening? Don't know. Just a thought. Cossack could be a pawn in this game. I don't know, Suze. Cossack is in the pointy end of this game. And I think we would be belittling the man's intelligence to suggest in any other way that he is nothing if not a strategic player. This is one of the reasons I admire him. He has a very tactical mind and a very strategic mind. He has a mind drawn on alliances and based on alliances of what he can build and what he can get from those alliances. I know because I've been through the workings with him. Is he the person that he presents to you on camera? No, he's not. A very different person presents away from the camera. A very different person. I believe there is now a great deal of evidence of that particular person that you could see in the not too distant future. But I don't have it yet, so I can't show it to you. But no, I'm not prepared on this point. There's just too much evidence. He's at the pointy end of this. He has to be, being the organizer of the worldwide rally for freedom here in Australia. He has to be the point of contact for taking that over. Now, that can only happen one of two ways. It can either come direct from the politicians to him, or it comes from the politicians through TNT radio to him, and a plan is hatched. That's the only way I can see it working. If there is another way to see it work, then by all means, please enlighten me and set me straight. But I'm not in no way wishing to accuse anybody of anything here. All I'm suggesting is there's a mention of a lot of money. That number has started to be obscured by stories being put out by the same people who went into Parliament House that day back in Canberra and came out after a cup of tea, biscuits, and a roam around private tour of the back stairs and told us all to go home. Just pointing these things out, folks. Just pointing these things out. So make from it what you will. And by all means, everybody concerned, other than the politicians, I think, have my phone number, but they'll be able to get it from Cossack and or Guru. And if they have a problem with that, email me, carl@vofhq.com. I'll send it to you. But I don't expect any of them will come on and answer any of these questions. To be honest, I don't think any of them will. Which is a bit sad. So we'll have to work on that. Maybe we need to give them another platform where people can come and speak the real truth, eh? I think that would only be fair. All right, folks, you have yourselves a good night. I hope you and yours were safe over the weekend, and this week is good for you. If you want to come to our opening, we would love to have you. So email Rachel at vofhq.com. We've only got a few tickets left, but we will squeeze you in. We've been conservative in our number count. We sort of aimed at maybe getting 100. So look, if the odd 2 or 3 or 5, 20 turn up afterwards, that's not going to be a big issue. But we do have to be a little bit careful on our numbers. And if you are coming to the event, just remember, if you are going to have a drink, make sure you drink inside. Just going to say that because you don't know where the venue is yet, but you will in your invite, which should be in your inbox right about now. If you have emailed me and or Rachel and asked for an invite, all well and good. If I have rung you and invited you, you probably won't have one in your inbox right about now because I didn't include your email addresses when I told Rachel to send one out. So you are counted, but your invite is in probably my inbox here somewhere. So I'll have to dig her out and send it to you, which I will most definitely do in the next 24 hours or so. See you Friday night for that. It's a 5 o'clock for a 6 o'clock start. And with a bit of luck, the wrapping God's willing, we might have a studio to show you. So, or at least the outside of it. The inside of it was meant to be fitted out this week, and because of delays and stuff, it just hasn't happened. So you won't get a look inside it this week, but you will next week as we're doing the inside of the studio for it. So we'll give you a show then, but you will definitely get a look on the outside of it on Friday night. Look forward to seeing you there if you're coming along to it. There's going to be a lot of interesting folks coming along for a chat, I hope. And if not, then we'll just chat amongst ourselves about those stupid bastard drivers on a Friday night. Eh?
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!